Welcome to our weekly podcast. My name is Tim Weigel, New York State IPM program and team leader of the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. And with me is my teammate, Kevin Martin. So Kevin, we're 30 days post-bloom about. They've gone out, they've done crop estimation, and I don't know if they've really come up with any surprising results, but the results has shown that we might be in for, I don't know, something different this year. Do you want to?
Right. I think a few years ago we saw sort of widespread crop thinning because of an overcrop year just across the belt. And I think just from an economic perspective, I think it's particularly important to pay attention to crop size this year, which is, what we found, what growers have found is just a lot of variability. There's variability in berry size and in crop size. And I think what that means just from a management perspective is that there's going to be smaller crops this year, probably undercrop vineyards because of the variable weather conditions last year. So trying to speculate when the plant is going to open and close is going to be more difficult than it would be if everybody was overcropped. You could hope for a late harvest in a year like that. And in a year like this, they might open early. We just don't know.
Okay. When you say the plant, you mean the processing plant?
The processing plant,
itself.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
So we just don't know when each individual processing plant will open. And when you have a lot of variability like that, it also impacts your ability to schedule during harvest. So when you think about thinning your grapes for a processor like Welch, for example, you should be thinking about targeting 15.5 to 16 bricks. And you should also be thinking about doing that the first week of harvest, not the last week of harvest, for at least some of your blocks. And that's where it really gets tricky. I think we have a lot of growers who think and realize that an individual block could reach 16 or even 17 bricks, but it might be the third week of October, and you can't harvest all of your grapes the third week of October. So just as, as an example, if you had a block of grapes that was going to reach 15 bricks in a year where average bricks was going to be around 16, which is what the processors would like, and you were delivering that to Welch, you would be paid approximately, and I'm speculating a little bit on price, but based on the past couple of years, approximately $183 a ton. And if you were to take 3 tons off of that block, we would expect that to reach 16 bricks. And if you did that, we would expect that to reach 16 bricks. And if you did that the first week, that you'd be paid a bonus on that for reaching high bricks in the first week. And you'd be paid more like $270 a ton. So as you fall below that level of 15 threshold for Welch's, and different processors have different thresholds, you really start to see where thinning this year can actually make you cash positive. So the grapes you're dropping on the ground really aren't worth anything in some instances, like the example I just gave. There will be other instances where you'll need to justify that lost crop by increased crop potential in prior years. And it will just depend on where you think you're going to be at harvest and where you actually end up.
And there's something to be said for taking those extra loads early in the season when other vineyards aren't ripe and being done and not having to worry about trying to get all your loads in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I sort of describe a scenario where the decrease in crop size is paid for by an increase in price. But that doesn't even begin to describe the benefits that happen when you're harvesting 3 weeks earlier with a smaller crop in terms of what your potential crop is for the following year. We would fully expect to see at least all 3 of those tons come back next year, as long as there wasn't a frost freeze event. So I typically value those 3 tons you took off as potential crop for the next year at least 60% chance you'll get at least 3 of those tons, in addition to the fact that you already made more money this year.
All right, great. Thank you. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, or you have suggestions of what you'd like to see on a podcast, please leave it in the comments below.
Thanks a lot.